Okay, good morning. We are, Bezrat Hashem, concluding Hilchos Niddah today. Okay, we finished off last time with Kuf Tzadi Tet, just to make sure, I'm not sure how I left it. If there's going to be a break between Chafifa and bathing and going to the mikvah, so Lechatchila, once a person does Chafifa, really, that's really what I'm saying is lechatchila, ideally one should not eat meat or things that are easy to get stuck between the teeth. But b'diavad, as long as you, it's a hiddur. It's not like a mama shalacha, but better not to. But you floss, you make sure that's fine. But the poskim say if it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, let's say she's gonna go to the mikvah after Friday night dinner. So then the poskim do say lechatchila, it's mutter for her to have meat because of Oneg Shabbos and Simchas Yom Tov. Okay, so that's just wanted to say. Let's start Siman Reish. Aymatai Taase Bracha Hat Birkat Tvila. So when should she say the bracha? So we basically learned everything until the actual point, the moment of dipping. So how does that work? Aleph. Keshe poshetet malbushea. So the Shulchan Aruch writes, what's the ideal way to do it? She takes off her clothing, right? Kesheomedet bechaluka, but she still has a robe on, maybe a towel, a robe. She still has something on her. So she removed most of her clothing. Now, why does she have to remove most of the clothing first? Because we know, we're going to get into this more, we know there's a halacha of over la'asiyatan. So one of the places, the Gemara has it in many places or several places. One of them is in Psachim Zayin Amar Bet. Why is that relevant? We're going to see in a moment. But anyways, we see you have to say the bracha over la'asiyatan. You have to say the bracha for all mitzvahs. We always have to say the bracha before the action. Once the action is done, it's too late to say the bracha in general. We'll just leave it at that. There's what to say, but that's in general. It has to be before. But it can't be over de over. It can't be way before. It's not like, you're driving to the mikvah and now you say a bracha. Even if you're not going to speak in between and not make a hefsek, that in itself is already, you're driving, but still time. You do it right before, not much before. So you take off your clothing. Then she's covered, right? She doesn't want to have, we don't say a bracha when we are naked. So she has to wear a robe. Tivarech asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu. What's the nusach? Al hatvila. Okay, so that's what we say. The bracha of going to the mikvah is al hatvila. V'tivshot chaluka, and then she takes off her robe. V'titpo, and then she gets naked and she goes into the water to dip. V'imlo bercha az tivarech li'achar shetikanes ad savara b'mayim. Let's say, for whatever reason, she didn't say the bracha when she was dressed, before she got in the water. She went in the water with the, she went in the water already, and she didn't say the bracha yet. Now she's about to dip. So what does she do? So she still has to say the bracha. So before she dips, before she dunks her head, she says the bracha. But we have issues of, one of the issues are erva. So he says like this. I'm going to recap this in a moment, but let's keep reading. If the water is clear, so then what does he say? You should use your legs, shake the water, make the water lift up dirt, or you can. We don't want mud to get stuck to her feet. So whatever it is, if it's sand, maybe she can kick it up a little bit. You don't want it stuck between the toes, ideally. Whatever the situation is, you shake the water. You can use your hands to lift up the dirt, and the water becomes no longer clear. So that's what the Shulchan Aruch is saying is the ideal way to do it, either before you go in, or while it's, or you shake up the water, and therefore, or if the water is already dirty a little bit, then there's no issue. And then she says the bracha. So then there's no problems of erva, and then she dips, and then that's over la siyata. Let me read the Rama, and then we'll come back. V'yesh omrim shelo tevarech, and the Rama quotes the opinion that wait, she should not say the bracha ad achara tvila. Wait, she should only say the bracha after she dips. V'chen nohagin shela'achar hatvila be'oda omedet toch hamayim mechaset atzma bebegadea or bechaluka umevarechet. So the Rama says, again, I'm going to go recap the halacha, the minhag by Ashkenazim and Sfardim, I think at the end. So stay tuned. So he says, the minhag is, the Rama writes, that she says the bracha only after she dips. Right? Even though it's over le'asiyatan, she does it afterwards, and that's the minhag. But afterwards, when she's still in, so she dips once, and then she's in the water. And while she's still in the water, then she covers herself with a robe. You put a robe on yourself afterwards, and you get dressed in the water, and then you say the bracha. All right, that's what he writes. He doesn't specify exactly, but we'll go over what's the general minhagim of what we do, according to the Rama. Okay, so let's just take a quick step back for a moment. So we mentioned the Gemara in Zayin, Amud Beis, Psachim. So he said, the Gemara over there says, clearly, the halacha is, over le'asiyatan, chutz min hatvila. The Gemara says there's only one exception from all the brachos, is tvila. That's the one time that you have to say the bracha afterwards. And there the Gemara is clearly only speaking about a ger, someone who converts. The Gemara says it's very clear that therefore, because a ger is not Jewish, a ger doesn't say brachos. So a ger cannot possibly, goy, correct. A ger before they convert is a goy. Thank you. A goy cannot say a bracha, doesn't work. So therefore, when they go to the mikvah to convert, if they say the bracha before to be over le'asiyatan, didn't count. Only when he comes out, he's Jewish, in or out, whatever, that's a separate story. Then, when you come out, then he's Jewish, and then you can say the bracha. So that is so that's what the Gemara says, very clearly. So most of the Rishonim clearly say that this exception is only for Tvila by a ger, when he converts. What about, so then, the Tosfos on the page, he writes, rewrites, Ein ligor benashim. Don't yell at the women when they go to dip first, when they're in Niddah. They go to we're talking about Niddah over there in Tosfos, to dip first, and then they say the bracha. Why? Because it seems to be against the Gemara. Because the Gemara is only talking about a ger, because it's not possible. But a Niddah is possible. She's Jewish. So Tosfos says that perhaps lo chilku. Chazal were not machalik. Once they made the exception for tvila, they made the exception for all tvilas. In other words, built in to the way they created or established, enacted, set up their brachos, that's how they made it. Lechatchila, a woman either should or could, or a guy, anyone who's going to the mikvah should go say the bracha afterwards. It's not, once they made an exception by tvila for a ger, that same exception applies to tvila. And Tosfos also, he says, and that could also apply to netilas yadayim. So that we learned before. Also, he points out, because it's, here it's because by the ger, it's efshar. So too by netilas yadayim, you can say it's efshar if you're doing netilas yadayim in a bathroom. Of course, you're not always in a bathroom, but sometimes you might be in a bathroom. So therefore, sometimes it's a situation of efshar. So therefore, that's how it could make sense for netilas yadayim, even more than just lo chilku. Or it could be because your hands are dirty. Okay. And also he points out by netilas yadayim, drying is part of the process, so at least drying is part of over le'asiyatan. Okay? And then also by Niddah, he says perhaps it's also a little bit of hada yefshar, because maybe she's going to be scared when she goes to the mikvah. We had this concept before. So she might end up, she could be dipping in a river or an ocean and scared. So she might change her mind and not dip that night. Or she'll wait 10 minutes till she gets, musters up the courage to do it. So therefore, maybe that's also possibly why they said it could be that Chazal made it to say the bracha afterwards. Also, a woman is not dressed when she goes to the mikveh, right? So how can you say bracha if you're not dressed? So that's also a case of ha'iyafshar. That's why the Rama says she dips, gets dressed, and then says the bracha, because it's also a case of iyafshar. Of course, she can say the bracha, and then also in Chulin, Kof Lamed Vav Tosfos over there says also, it's really according to one man Amar, but the whole concept perhaps helps because there is a machlokas if you can say a bracha when you're a Baal Keri. So for a Baal Keri, couldn't go to the mikveh, it has to go to the mikveh before he can say brachas and speak divrei Torah. So therefore, for a Baal Keri, again, we don't paskin like that way, but according to that man Amar, they need to say the bracha after they go to the mikveh. Anyway, so that's just a little background of where this all comes from. And fine. Okay, so Rav Moshe points out, yes, we can speak about Nero Shabbos as well, a little bit. But that's also, and question is, can you, yeah. All right, well, I won't get into that, but very good. So what are some of the issues that we need to just clarify, that we started to clarify, is when to say the bracha and how to say the bracha. What are the main issues? So the issues are over le'asiyatan, we just mentioned. Another one is kisui harosh. Maybe her head needs to be covered. Some of the poskim point out. Another problem could be erva. If a woman's not dressed, how could she go? And another issue could be a mikvah with hot water could have a din of a merchatz. And a din of a merchatz is it's a hot room, steam, and therefore it's the inner room where there's steam, where people are naked and they bathe. Therefore, it's usher to say a bracha in a merchatz. So how does that apply l'maisa for our mikvahs? So you look in the Shach Taz Bir Hetiv, at length they discuss some of these issues. I mean, really, it's discussed many places. The Mishnah Berurah discusses it in Ayin Daled of Orach Chaim, and maybe we'll do a really quick recap over there. But bottom line, the Bir Hetiv has a quick summary, but he quotes Taz and Shach. Basically, they all say like this: our minhag for Ashkenazim is not like the Shulchan Aruch and not like the Rama. Nowadays, what do most women do? They go in the mikvah and I don't know if they say it, but we all know this. What most women do is they dip twice. That's the general what most poskim say, at least for Ashkenazim and some Sfardim. But generally for Ashkenazim is they should dip twice. They dip the first time, and that is because everything we introduced from the Rama, we don't have to repeat. So you dip first, and then you say the bracha. All right, to make it similar to Tfilas Ger. Then what about? But then they say the bracha, and then they dip again. The dipping again can help with the concept of over la'asiyatan. So that's why it's important to dip twice. Some say it's important to dip twice also, just to make sure that you were completely immersed in water, especially the creases. The water got in there. Okay, so that's what's done, and they point out, and they basically say that that's the custom, and that generally women, as far as erva, they just keep, even if the water is clear, that's generally, they let the water be clear, and that's not a problem. And their head is obviously outside the water when they say the bracha. And since their eyes are not looking at their makom erva, and their eyes are outside of the water, that's considered separate enough, and the water is considered covering them enough. Again, it is a discussion in Ayin Dalet of Orach Chaim if water is good enough, but the Shulchan Aruch itself says, I think it's in Sif Dalet, that it is good enough for women. So Yesh Misha Omer, but Lamaisa, what? So here he's being machmer. But the Shulchan Aruch did paskin in Orach Chaim, Ikar adin for women in water. If they're naked, it's fine. They can say a bracha. If they're out, because the water, I'll explain in a second. But what was I going to say? Well, because there's two issues when it comes to erva. One is when anyone says a bracha, two issues must be accounted for. Their erva cannot be revealed, has to be covered, and the other issue is libo roa es erva. Your heart cannot see the erva. So women are a little more mekel. There's more room to be mekel. It's not as for men, just as a general. That's like the water. Does water count? So water counts that you're covered up and that it's good enough, but not for men, because for men, obviously we know the makom erva for the men sticks out. It protrudes a little bit, and by women it's more recessed. And if they were to be outside of water, so then it would be a problem for women unless they're like sitting down and into the dirt or covered up a little bit when they're sitting down. So it gets covered that way. But if it's or just I think just sitting's okay. But for men it doesn't help because it still protrudes. But here with the water, mikar din, it works for women. So and then also for libo roes erva. So in order to be considered covered up, mikar din, we say water. It's a question mark if water works or not, but we can say it works. And as long as no one else can see you, you just don't look at it, or if there's other people who could see if they're in the mikvah at the same time, so then you have to look away, or you have to move the water to get dirt to come up if it's not a clean mikvah. But let's see, and leave bubbles, so that helps. Yeah, bubbles helps so that your eyes and other people can't see. And the discussion as far as being like under a blanket or something like that, so that's a bigger problem for men, less of a problem for women, because that's the sugya of libo roas erva. So there's supposed to be a hefsek between the lave and the makom erva, even if you're under a blanket or in the water. But Shulchan Aruch says mikar den, women can be mekel. So therefore, generally speaking, women. Most women, as far as I know, I did a very minor survey, but not adequate enough. The women do not cover their hair when they say the bracha. We're talking about Ashkenazi women. They do not cover their hair. They say the bracha. They do not put arms over their stomach to create a hefsek, and the water is clear. And they just keep their head out of the water when they say the bracha. And that is what the Shach says after the first dip. Umin Hagan Torah Hi. And that's the minhag of Klal Yisrael, at least of Ashkenazim, and that's the Torah, and that's acceptable. Does it satisfy every opinion in the Rishonim? No. But that is the accepted halacha 100%. One should not say anything against it, and that's what they do. There's no reason to change. However, it doesn't mean you can't be machmer. The Mishnah Berurah, for example, and others say it's better to if you can make the water dirty and lift it up or have bubbles, that would be better. Although you don't want the bubbles to. I'm just thinking to make you probably don't want bubbles there so that the balanit can make sure the hair is completely immersed. So, but that would help the erva issue, but it would make it worse for tefillah issues. So I don't recommend that. What else did you say? Right. So it's better to put your arm over your stomach, right, between your heart and the makom erva. But again, it's not necessary. And some say it's better to cover their heads as well. I don't know. Bring a tablecloth, not the table. A washcloth, or bring something inside with you to put on your head when you say the bracha, or to have a woman put her hand on your head. But again, that's not generally done, and it's not required. I would say that's more of a midas chasidus, but based on the minhag. Let's see if that pretty much covers everything. Yeah, one arm's enough just to make a separation. Okay, now let's see, what else do we want to speak about on this topic? So we mentioned kisui rosh. in general, there's a machloket if women need to cover their hair when they say a bracha. So it depends who you ask, but generally speaking, most poskim do not say women need to cover their hair when they say a bracha. But some say married women, there's a big minhag to always cover their hair. So I guess it depends who you ask. What about the mikvah being a din of a merchatz? So again, on this we're also meko, and we just assume it's not steamy enough to be considered a merchatz, and or sweaty or smelly, so it's not. So we're meko on that. We do not consider it a merchatz. No, everyone says a bracha. So the question is, should you say it before? Fine. So let me just jump to. I think we explained what the minhag for Ashkenazim is, but for most Sfardim, what do they do when they go to the mikvah? The woman, before she enters the mikvah room, she's wearing her clothing, and some cover their hair. They say the bracha. So Yotze Lakola Deos, really, the Shulchan Aruch, and then immediately, without speaking, without making a hefsek, she takes off the robe and she goes into the mikvah, and that there's no issues of erva, no issues of merchatz, no issues of she did kisi rosh. Yeah, because you want to be so you can just in a second take it off, or a towel, and then it's not a hefsek, and then it's over siatan, and then that really gets everything. Now, how many times do you dip? So really, halachically, you only need to dip once. But we mentioned many, in particular, Ashkenazim dip twice. Again, there's some Sfardim who follow like the Ashkenazim, but most do like Shulchan Aruch, or like the way I just explained is Rav Ovadia, Zitzal. And some do 7 dips, some do all kinds of numbers, whatever they are. Just some point out when a kala is going to start deciding how many times she's going to dip, some say she should say that she's doing it bli neder, so that you don't need to make problems that way. If you need a taras and dayim or not, okay. Let's see. Shechianu. There is such a discussion. If the first time when a kala goes, should one say shechianu? But as far as I know, everyone says, at the very least, Safek Brachos Lahakal. So I don't think anyone says it. Happens to be when we get to Gerus. So I think it's the word baz. Some do say, some Beis will tell the woman or the ger to say Shechianu. But that's because they're becoming Jewish. It's not for the mikvah, it's for becoming Jewish. Okay, let's see. Anything else? I think that. And then what happens? Oh, this is really from Kut Sadi Tet. I'll just mention it. What happens? We needed to do a comb. She needed to comb her hair. What happens if, for some strange situation, there is no comb and there's nothing she can do? So she can't get a hold of a comb. So then I spoke of Pessin, but I think it's clear that it depends on the situation. If her hair is not knotted and she can check it she washes it and checks it very well with her fingers and can separate and use her fingers as a comb, so that works. When absolutely necessary.